Good evening, everybody. So we had to reboot, but welcome to the Dan the Messenger podcast, season 3, episode 1, Rise of the Jedi. I don't know what you want to call it. But anyways, we have Lieutenant Colonel retired Pete Chambers, who's going to be coming on. And beforehand, I'm just going to do a quick little video of his.
What I was here today to speak about truly was the weaponization of public health.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm also a whistleblower. That's my... That person right there called me one day. I called her, I can't remember, it was an email. And she said, have you seen the DMED system? Have you seen what it's up? And I'm like, I'm working on the border. I'm trying to stop 12,000 people coming across this border a week. And she said, well, take a look at it.
I want people to understand that we're in a fifth generation war. Fifth generation is for the heart and the mind.
В карманах у нас немала. Малая смотрит всю ночь на меня. Два виски с колой, детка моя. Из клуба ночью на машине к тебе заберу. И не сказав родителям, на море увезу. Мы будем пить вино, потом пойдем смотреть кино. А после...
So that was from the Dan the Messenger TikTok page. I want to welcome and thank you guys for joining us the first of the year. I have a very special guest. We just quickly introduced him, but I'm going to let him speak for himself. If you've seen the movie or the documentary Died Suddenly, you will be very aware and know who this gentleman is. Welcome to the podcast broadcast, Lieutenant Colonel retired Pete Chambers. How are you doing? This is better.
Yeah, I think we got a good dialogue atmosphere now. We're good. Doing great.
Absolutely. So give us, if you don't mind, you kind of started going into the beginning from last, but give us a little background on yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience who do not know this badass of a human being that is doing amazing things on this planet. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, so I came in the Army a long time ago. I grew up in a little tiny town, about 3,000 people. My dad was a family practice doc. He was an immigrant, but also became a citizen legally. And then I went in the Army in '83 under Ronald Reagan, and I served as an infantryman, been a paratrooper, been a Green Beret commander also, and then a physician in the military. I worked as a flight surgeon for special operations units, and to include the 3rd Special Forces Group, my alma mater at Fort Bragg. A shout out to you guys. I know some of you are going to watch because I just texted you. What else? I got out in 2015 and went to the Texas National Guard, which I just retired in May the 30th of this past year from. And I was on the border in Operation Lone Star. I was a task force surgeon for about 3,000 soldiers. We had the COVID. We were post the beginning of the COVID era and did not have a mandate in the beginning. Soldiers were doing great. I was keeping them healthy by early intervention and good primary care preventative medicine. And then when my hands were tied and I was basically fired for doing informed consent briefs, I then noted that the numbers went through the roof once people became double vaxxed. About 60-70% of the people that were sick on the border, soldiers, were double vaxxed. Gave that some information to Senator Johnson during a reveal, a whistleblower reveal on the Hill, and Senator Johnson required Dr. Teresa Long, Dr. Sam Sigloff, Lieutenant Mark Bashaw, and myself to give our names, and we did. And then I went from being a shadow warrior to a known entity in the COVID fight. Since then, I've been involved with court cases and other things, and I just wanted to go raise cattle. Unfortunately, we got a different fight, don't we, brother?
Amen on that. You know, we were talking about that earlier about the the warrior farmer, or like the William Wallaces of the world, that they just wanted peace. They wanted to tend their ranch, their farm, their family. No one wants this. No one wanted to be involved in this. But it takes people like yourself to continue with the fight and the battle, to educate and to what we were talking about earlier. When I met you was at the conference, right? A medical conference with all the known usual suspects that are fighting the good fight. Mm-hmm. Pierre Corey, Dr. Paul Merrick, Ryan Cole, and here you go. I'm up there, and you give your portion of it. And up until recently, what you talk about really was not in that circle, right? At these type of conventions. And I mean, you came right out. The first thing you said, this is what? Fifth generation what?
Fifth generation warfare. Being a Green Beret, we specialize in unconventional warfare, which is under the category of irregular warfare, which that fifth generation falls in. I'll give you a quick synopsis. First generation warfare is, David and Goliath stuff. And then you work your way up to fourth generation warfare, and that's counterinsurgency operations. And then everything in between there is just historical advancement of different type of weaponry and tactics. Fifth generation is hearts and minds, straight up psyop stuff, but it also uses these mediums that we're talking on right now, our phones, the media, triple letter agencies, all the cloak and dagger stuff that went by the wayside after the Cold War went into digits, and it went from basically analog to digital, kind of like me. I'm having to do right now.
Yeah, well, that's our generation. Generation X is analog to digital generation. We grew up with nothing, and as our younger years started kicking in, all this tech started coming online. So we can live in both worlds, which is kind of cool because we can read a map. We know how to get around without GPS. But all right, so my first question to you with this, because in that audience, you definitely were a standout for what you were talking about versus some of the rest of it. But at the end of the day, what got you to do the movie Died Suddenly? You were doing a conference or a talk, or how'd that come about?
So Died Suddenly was a brainchild of a few people, but it was Stu Peters that approached me, and he asked me at a conference that we were doing, a COVID summit in Idaho, in Boise, Idaho, on the side of the stage after I got done speaking about the weaponization of public health. I was speaking about fifth generation warfare and that we are at war, and a lot of people don't realize it. See, when the war shows up on your doorstep, and you can't see it, you can't physically see it. I can see it. I can see it every time somebody gets a jab in their arm. When he heard that, he said, "Hey, Doc, you want to step over here on the side room? We've got a little cloakroom, and we're going to film a few of you people speaking, just to get some interviews." So I spoke about fifth generation warfare, and then it went into that piece, which was Died Suddenly. And Died Suddenly, I believe, from watching it, I didn't know exactly how I was going to be used in that, but it's basically a piece to bring light to something to wake people up. And I believe when I watched the numbers of people on Rumble, I believe it was, go to like 10 million within 7 days or 5 days. I don't know where it's at now, but I realized that this is really, getting looked at. So it's good. Now, there were some mainstream media people that said, "Oh, that's sensationalism and all that." I got it. But if you're going to be fighting fifth generation warfare, you got to use fifth generation warfare to fight back. You can't do the traditional stuff. We're not kinetic. We're not doing that. So that's kind of how I got into that just tiny little piece that I gave in that video.
And so, like you said, it grabbed the attention of a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. Is it an accident on the side of the road where everybody slows down and take a look at it? Is that what grabbed their attention, or are they actually seeing things that are making them go, something's not right? Uncle June was perfectly healthy. Now he's gone. Aunt Sally got cancer 2 months after her inoculation. Are they starting to connect the pieces to this, or is it just curiosity?
I think that, human beings are creatures of habit, and there is definitely a morbid curiosity for the, man, I feel sorry for them. Boy, I'm glad that it wasn't me. But because this event touches everyone, so to speak, everyone is subject to being attacked by this particular bioweapon, in that the spike protein is either going to be injected in your arm, you're going to either end up getting COVID some way or another, or somebody that has, there's shedding and these things are finally coming to light, and we know what it's doing now. right? And when it first came out in the state of Texas, I was helping out the governor's office with the response. Governor Abbott, the initial models that came out looked like it was just going to kill, a quarter of the state if we didn't do anything. And so you don't know what you don't know. And then as it happened, I would start calling around to ERs. I'm an ER guy, primary care guy, and it wasn't as bad as what the models were showing. But yeah, that's I believe there are different reasons why people watch that. And for me, it was if I wasn't in it, I was in it, but I would probably watch it just for the to understand what we're looking at, and then be able to go and research it and see is this true and match that up.
Yeah, and they, in the movie, now I was not going to watch it, just because I've been on the front lines of this. I've seen patients. I have seen enough of it to last me a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But a doctor made me sit down and watch it with her and her mother, just to, and the things that popped up to me that if you do not understand what's going on were the slides showing the known downstream effects from the gain of function spike protein.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed you the spike protein flow chart, but they were stating immunosuppression. Most people aren't getting what that means when they're talking about immunosuppression. And then just the other day, Dr. McCullough called out, hey, how come any of the infectious disease doctors, how come they've not been speaking up? Can you kind of unpack that just a little bit more of why he made that statement?
Yeah, and understand Dr. McCullough is a cardiologist, and you have some other people out there. You have Dr. Ryan Cole, great guy, pathologist. Each one of them has their specialty. They're going to talk about what is important to them. But since this COVID thing really fell under the category of virology and immunology, it would make sense that if there were some infectious disease specialists out there, they would probably step up and say, yeah, this is what we're seeing. But that's in an environment, in a free speech environment where there is no coercion or people getting paid extra from the CARE Act to err on the side of admitting somebody for, this is straight up, I mean, this is just facts, err on the side of not making a good bundle of money if you have that diagnosis of COVID on there. And understand this, they go into it a little bit in the died suddenly. Coroners were getting paid also. Right? Coroners were also being coerced and threatened if they did not put COVID-19 on the diagnosis, yet the patient came to the emergency department post-car accident. And let's say they coded him or whatever, and then they, for whatever reason, felt the need to do a PCR test on somebody that was in a trauma. But this is how crazy it got at the user level, right? So that's now you see the conspiracy theory come to light, and it's conspiracy truth, right? I mean, that's what's happened.
Yeah, and so, but to get a little deeper into that, take the onion off a little bit more, what we are seeing is a lot of post-COVID patients. One, we already knew that if you had stuff like Epstein-Barr or Kawasaki, herpes, a lot of those latent, dormant viruses were being reactivated or kind of let free. And there has to be a pathway to that. It isn't like it just went in there and say, hey guys, you're able to come out. There had to be an immune system that was elevated T cells, elevated cytokines that eventually wear down, right? We don't have a finite amount of T cells, right?
Right.
All right, so if a house is on fire, it'll eventually burn down if you don't put water on it, correct?
Right. So you have the T cells that were the T helper cells, and here's an interesting factoid, is that the same cells that are involved with acquired immune deficiency syndrome, HIV, are being suppressed as well. And in the military, on the Defense Medical Epidemiology Database, between 500 and 600% rise in the military, to the point where military said, well, that's used to be disqualifier for deployment if you had HIV, and now they've pulled that disqualifier off, which required a waiver to send somebody downrange. So, yeah, those are concerns. Also, we're looking at IgGs, the immunoglobulin Gs, and specifically IgG4 as another target of this thing. So, as you are unable to fight off your basic viral and bacterial insults, you are also seeing a rise in those things that were lying dormant. That herpes zoster, which is actually shingles, lying dormant in a nerve cell in your body, and then all of a sudden coming out. Skin diseases, autoimmune diseases through the roof, neurologic disorders that are autoimmune related as well. Yeah, we're seeing all those things.
And we know this, that from the spike protein, that it gets everywhere in the body. And part of the thing could be one theory is that the immune system, anywhere the spike is going, it's attacking it. So if it's on an organ, it's attacking it. Right. If it's on your neural network, it's attacking it. Mm-hmm. And you would know this, what happens when it's attacking the myelin sheath?
Well, okay, so let me explain what that is. There's a myelin sheath that is it's a fatty layer that covers each of the neurons, each of the nerves, right? It covers it, and it protects them, if you will. I'm going to liken it to when you plug something in your wall and there's a rubber coating over your electrical cord. If you strip that away and expose the metal, and then some other cord was going across it, you would end up with a short in the system. The same thing happens in the brain. We see this with Alzheimer's disease and other things, neurofibrillary tangles, and some of those things. So what you're seeing is symptoms like Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis, which is a hardening of those things, those nerves. So that myelin is demyelinated, it's taken off, and that's what I ended up having, which doesn't help you much when you're trying to drive down the road.
Yeah, and so I'm going to show something real quick to give the audience an example, because we have frontline workers that have been, well, you're one of them, that have been injured from this, severely injured. And I'm going to show the audience, someone I know personally. Her name is Danielle, who was a nurse, who's vaccine injured. And you're going to get an idea that the audience of what you're talking about. Okay, here we go.
10 minutes is what changed my and my family's life. 10 minutes. I'm a shell of what I was.
I laid in the hospital for 5 days with no help. And I would be begging them, please help me.
It is not ethical that they sent me home with a walker and an order for a potty chair.
And I'm gonna show you what it looks like to have an injury and what I have to deal with every single day.
My heart is so broken. I can't keep quiet anymore. This is a humanitarian crisis. These people are suffering. This is real disease.
There has to be a recognition of vaccine injury. There are no vaccine injury clinics, and we know there's an epidemic of vaccine injuries. I mean, these are the most toxic medical interventions known to man.
There are millions of people who are suffering. They're being ignored, they're not getting treatment, and they're suffering.
So with that is what we call downstream effects of the myelin sheath being eaten away at the neurological system, causing early stages of MS, correct?
Roger that, 100%.
That's what we just seen when she was trying to get up. So one thing that you and I talked about is that whole thing I sat there watching all of you guys speak. Not one time did I hear any way of turning the page and getting to how do we treat the walking wounded? How do we help the vaccine injured? How do we help long haulers? Because what most people aren't understanding is they are two and the same. Am I correct?
Right.
Why are they two and the same?
Spike proteins. I mean, it's the same culprit.
Now, there might be the mRNA versus the wild strain, that there might be a few amino acid differences, but it's the same spike protein. And when we went before the Congress and the Senate, advocates for long COVID in January of 21 or May of 21, we told them this is going to be a $4 trillion medical emergency within the next decade if they do not treat these patients early and aggressively. And now, at that time, we didn't have vaccine injured like yourself and everybody else, so the numbers are going to be astronomical. Now, Senator Johnson, your friend, and you've testified and been before him, stated with a group of other senators, how come we didn't follow the 4 pillars of a pandemic? And one is early treatment, right? There are treatments for this. There are ways to help repair the myelin sheath. There are ways to help get the spike protein out, right? I'm asking you, like, there are things that you can do. And
yeah.
And what we're going to do today is an introduction to you, to our audience, but you're very famous. But we're going to do a series of these, kind of talking and walking people through of what we've been trying to do and working on. So our teams have been spike protein focused since September 2020. We knew spike protein was the culprit, trying to figure out how to get it out of the system. Is that fair in saying that there are ways to beat this genie back into its bottle? There's no cures, but there are definitely therapies, right?
Right. And there's other doctors that are, way more famous than me that are now speaking about it. And it's good to hear. And I heard of what you were working with and of course, wanted to meet you. And I met you at the Florida COVID Summit there in the Villages, and felt the need that I had to get back from Texas so that I could do that. And we're going to talk about it in one of these other episodes. But there's other things, and everything is what we call in medicine an adjunct. And so one of the things I did learn from my dad when he was primary care doc is that there's more than one ways to skin a cat, basically, and that medicine is an art, and there are certain things, just like the spike protein might affect the kidneys or multi-system organ failure. If you're looking at a later stage, it might be very mild as far as the spike protein, but the treatments pretty much are the same. A combination of some nutraceuticals and some anti-helminthic or parasitic type drugs, but some really, to me, new things that now going through it, I can tell you that firsthand that there's some really great literature out there showing this has been around for a while. It just until yourself explaining it to me, I number one hadn't had time to look into. I'm looking at 6 other lines of effort, but now that this is becoming a primary, as some of the other ones are backing off, we need to get on this thing. Time is of the essence.
Yeah, and so what I've been doing, and because I haven't been doing these like I was, because I've been busy working. I've been busy trying to get teams together so we can get treatments out there for the masses. When I go speak to doctors, I tell them we could put 1,000 of the units and the machines that I'm using in every major city, and it wouldn't be enough. Right. And they know I'm not lying, because they're seeing we have all become a very close network of frontline facilitators trying to be a part of the solution to the problem when the evil empire, places like Pfizer and our friends, are doing everything in their powers to block information from the public that could be saving lives. And this is where you come up and talk about Nuremberg, bunches of us, because we understand why those are put in place in the first place. We know why. The general public doesn't understand it, but once it all starts coming to fruition, hopefully, prayers, people like our great governor of Florida, DeSantis, will lead the way on exposing the evil empire, what they've done. And most of the, I would say maybe 75 to 80% of the population out there get that. I posted a doctor speaking about go get your booster. No one's not getting it. And the comment section was just 90% them roasting her, going, you should go to jail for what you're doing right now. Because they know better, right? And this is back to circling to died suddenly. I think a lot of it is people are awake. They're trying to put their finger on it. They go, oh, yeah, maybe those crazy people that originally weren't really crazy. And then there's a side of us, not me, not you, that are doing their circle dance of going, yeah, we're right. No one wants to be right. No, there is no winners in death. No one wins. There is getting that information out and helping our brothers and sisters, because my background as a Christian, first generation Christian, I'm like Steve Harvey. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to help my brothers and sisters. And this is why people like you and Dr. Braun come on and willingly share and help, because we're all in that same community. We're trying to do the good thing through Christ. We're trying to help, trying to be a part of the solution to the problem.
Yeah, and it's like Dr. Merrick was saying there, it hurts my heart, and it does, because I have and on the battlefield lost soldiers and put friends into body bags. It's not something I'm proud of, and it's a tough thing to talk about. But the numbers of people that I might have put my hands on in combat to save or to try to intervene will just be a fraction but what we can touch now. Use the same technology to turn this around. And this technology is just, especially what you and I are going through right now, what I'm learning about and plussing myself up on is it's a gift from God. That's about as simple as I can put
it. And I call myself Forrest Gump, and I thoroughly, wholeheartedly mean it, because I never. How in the hell would I be talking to someone like you in a million years? Never would have happened if it wasn't through God and these experiences that we're going through, these times. God, we never know who God's going to call and choose up, and lucky us, lucky us, here we are. But with that being said, what I've been able to do in this last almost 2 years, recover myself from near death. I got plenty of witnesses that'll tell you all X, Y, and Z, but to replicate it and to have had trials already, and to show that it is replicatable, it is the best part about it. And it's in the Bible. And I put it to and fro so many different ways to the people. Let there be light. And when I say I'm putting the hand of God on people, I swear it feels like the hand of God's on them. And they started covering it. Malone's covered it. They call it red light therapy. FLCCC now, I'd already sent something to Dr. Merrick and showed him the studies, has covered it. And even Mr. McCullough, Dr. McCullough, is talking about energetic medicine. And essentially, this is a war of attrition when our body is having the cytokines. All the energy that is being used internally to fight this is depleting us of our natural resources, right? I mean, that's essentially, it's a war of attrition if you don't put the fire out. And what I'm doing and what we are working on is a technology that does a few things. So we know that the mitochondria is having severe dysfunction throughout the body post-COVID, right? What happens when the mitochondria is turned off?
That's you don't have any energy. That's your power cell.
And inflammation stays in there, right? We're talking in COVID, long COVID, vaccine injured, spike protein toxicity, however you want to package it up. It is chronic inflammation throughout the entire system, causing dysregulation of these organs, right?
Well, it's those very cytokines that are released as mediators to inflammation. That's especially when we talk about a cytokine storm. I mean, that is released in mass in anaphylaxis, for example. And so when you see the immune system respond that way, that's what is taking people to the emergency room, not initially, but to the point where they got to be put on ventilators. And as we all know, when you get put on a ventilator during this type of an outbreak, there's not a lot of people going home.
And we're seeing now, right? So there's new waves, and they're talking about China. And just earlier today, we walked around and seen people starting to mask back up. And the problem is the science isn't there for the masks, right? There's no, they can't show you any literature, nowhere. And even their own people are admitting it. They're head scientific guys. I got the videos going, yeah. So what are those? Are they binkies? Are they security blankets? Are they what's going on? Is it psychology? Like,
Right. Yeah, so that's almost like Stockholm syndrome. When you demoralize a nation, when you demoralize a people, that's a Marxist technique, right? You started demoralizing by telling them that this thing's going to kill you, and we're going to lock you down, and you're not going to be able to open your stores, but we're going to tell you which ones can open and which ones can't, and you demoralize, and then you start giving back a little bit. And so in Stockholm syndrome, which is one of the units that I used to work for, one of our specialties was hostage rescue. So we were, if you rescue somebody, sometimes they've already developed a relationship with their captor. And this is what's happening to a lot of people. So the captor being the bad actors that are either the world side bad actors, or misinformed or nefarious legislators that might have personal agendas, that might have invested in Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. Who knows? I can't know that, but I do know this, is that the psychology of it is such that there are people that will follow whatever they say, and now that's their security. So like like you said, going to the mall and seeing people wearing masks again now, there's no mandate for that. There's no science that shows that that's even effective, but they're not going to listen to this type of show. They're not going to go seeking knowledge. They're just going to trust, I don't even know what, a policy that's by some store or some local county judge or government. No, the science is not even there. And even the White House's own COVID advisor now has come out and said there is no science that shows that the masks are effective. But you still see people doing it. That's a sign of those Stockholm things. And then there's the cognitive dissonance thing, which is another thing that we talk about. And then there's just plain old scared, just cowards.
yeah, it's a different generation of type of people. Now, if masks worked, I'd say okay. If it actually worked, I'd be no problem. But we're 3 years into this, and it's not gotten better. The population put a whole bunch of that stuff in their arms. It's only gotten worse. And now they've run out of propaganda, except to say it's updated. Go get the new one. And there's probably, our estimate from the first time we went before the Congress and Senate, just in long COVID callers, there was probably about 30 to 34 million. That was 2 years ago, just long COVID long haulers. I'm saying we're probably up to about 60 to 70 million just in America alone of vaccine injured and long COVID. They need to know that there's hope. I created the charity Hope Number 4 Humanity in May of 2020 because God asked me to, and I'm telling you, what we are working on right now will give hope back to the people that are looking for ways to get their lives back. Now, can I promise anybody they'll get back to 100%? No, there's no cures. There are therapies that are working, and there are nutraceuticals that can help with the NAD+ deficiency. So I'm going to put one little graph up here. Let's see here. This was shared with me. Let's see if it pops up. Probably not. I'm gonna turn our mics off for a second. It's gonna pop up. Give the audience a minute to look at it, and then we're gonna talk about it. Now that was from 2 years ago. That was from Nikita Alexandrov's team. And they're talking about NAD+ deficiency. Can you get into it a little bit? Do you know? Can you explain it to the audience just a little?
Were you talking about nicotinic type receptors?
Well, they're going into the fact that on the level of our systems depleting our natural resources, NAD plus deficiency is causing a lot of these downstream effects.
Okay, yeah. Well, there's so many factors that are causing downstream effects now that we're finding, but the long hauler syndrome is as you and especially the more and more people that are jabbed, and the more people that have multiple jabs, right? Multiple jabs. We're talking about the shedding thing. You know, people ask me, is that a real thing? Yes, it's a real thing. Yes, it's affecting more people. So the more that they get spike proteins added to their system, the more they produce themselves, the more they shed. Those get spread out across the country, right? I mean, it's astronomical. So your immune system has a threshold for when it's going to start firing those cytokines. And cytokines aren't the only thing. Those are just some of the factors. It's a cascade of factors. And each time that you use that, then the threshold changes for how you're going to respond to something. So you're responding now, and this is an excuse a lot of people say is, well, I took the shots, therefore my COVID wasn't as bad this time. All right. Well, let me tell you about real immunology. Real immunology says that when I get something, a virus, then I have natural immunity, and my immune system stays strong. But as I change my thresholds, as I change my ability, each time that there's an insult added to it, the effectiveness decreases. So now something else comes along. Let's say something for real, right? Methicillin resistant Staph aureus. My immune system will be shot. And that's a concern. Besides the symptomatology that goes along with the long hauler, because the symptomatology, and you can attest to this having done it. I don't treat patients right now because I've been out of the military for a while and I haven't gone back to medicine yet. But you can tell us a little bit about your own experiences with what you noticed.
Well, so this is where we're going to get into energetic-based medicine and energetic-based nutraceuticals. We'll cover it in the next couple, maybe the next time or a time after, with a short list of things that someone could be taking. And then also, since we know that a lot of these patients now are immunocompromised and they're very susceptible to even the common cold, they need to start being able to put in natural antivirals to help protect themselves. And this is something that we've been doing with great success, is working on boosting the immune system with some natural antivirals to help give them another layer of protection while the immune system is recovering, while you're repairing cells and so forth and so on. So we'll get into that. I'll be prepared on that one. But basically, I was just trying to point out that this science and what we've known about this is going back 2 years. And so now the population that is sicker and really people that have very compromised immune systems need to start educating themselves up quickly, or they're going to be 6 feet under. And this is where Diet Suddenly kind of did it in a more sell the sizzle and not the steak side of it. I wish that they would have got into those slides. If you stop them quick enough and write all that down and research it, you'll start understanding what we're talking about when we're saying downstream effects. Ryan Cole comes right out and says it. Cancer. This is what's cancer. Well, anytime the immune system gets wore down to the level
Right.
cancer is the next step. It's the end game there.
Mhm.
And but what we are seeing is stage 4 cancer, not early, it's always aggressive. It's amazing. He even points out the brain, the digestive system, ovaries, all that stuff. All of a sudden, it's going on a wildfire. Well, if we can slow down that fire and help the immune system come back online, we can stop a lot of those downstream effects, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to move the chapter forward to, all right, we do know what's happening. We do know there's walking wounded. Now we want to be a part of the solution and help get these clinics and centers going to where people can get a fairly cost-effective therapy to help give them things like brain fog.
Right.
Anybody would be able to start thinking clearly again. And the cool thing is a lot of the protocols that have been developed will work on any autoimmune type of disorder like ME/CFS, Lyme disease. Talked about the shingles virus. We have a neurologist in Africa talking about what this type of therapy did with somebody who had. Do you remember what type of what he said? The actual, I think he said hepatic. Is it hepatic shingles?
No,
Anyway,
I hadn't heard that one.
well, let's see. I'll tell you what. I think I might have it here, because I think it's interesting to know that it's not only applied towards what we're talking about. Disease is disease. Our body's fighting a spike protein. All right, here. Let me see. This might be it. Hold
The mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. So it produces ATP, which is energy. Now, in a lot of neurological conditions, inflammatory conditions, rheumatological conditions, even orthopedic conditions, the primary problem is inflammation. So when there is inflammation, you have a whole inflammatory cascade, you have swelling at the site of injury, and that results in pain. Now, pain is interpreted at the peripheral level, which is at the site of injury, as well as the central level. That's why we all have a different pain threshold.
So in the brain.
Absolutely, that's what I mean by central. For now, we're going to be focusing on the peripheral pain pathways, and this is why we focus on, for example, an example in the lower back. So that the light is emitted to those areas at a specific wavelength, and because there is inflamed tissues with a whole lot of inflammatory cytokines, which result in the swelling and the pain signals, this is then absorbed by the mitochondria, which are then switched on. The mitochondria are switched off in the state of inflammation. So once you switch the mitochondria on, automatically you have increased ATP production. So that means it's a powerhouse cell, so you get more power. Once you switch on the mitochondria, this results in a whole cascade of events chemically at the cellular level, which means that you now introduce improved blood flow, there's improved growth factors, and this can be across the board. Cartilage growth factors, bone growth factors, nerve growth factors, vessel growth factors, and that improves blood flow. You improve blood flow to a specific region. What are you doing? You're making it better.
And there's medical research behind it.
Absolutely. This has come from clinical studies.
So, did you have special training to do this? Because it's not really common in South Africa yet.
No, it's not common in South Africa, but there is a training that you have to be certified for before you can administer the laser therapy, and there's a whole lot of literature that you have to go through to understand the concepts of this type of therapy and how to administer the therapy.
So, Dr. Banjan, at the start of the show, I just mentioned, some of the areas like sports and soft tissue injuries or repetitive stress injuries, for example. What are some of the conditions that could be treated using this BioFlex laser therapy?
You see, this all started off in a rehabilitation center. So it started off with a lot of rehabilitation and sporting injuries. For example, if you look at on YouTube, there's a lot of basketball injuries, baseball injuries, and they all miraculously got better after a couple of sessions. And the reason behind this is because they need the players back on the field. So this was then taken to a different level when they started noticing that patients were improving very quickly. They looked at the mitochondrial dysfunction and started applying it to other conditions. And I'll give you an example. In neurology, we have patients who have, for example, post-herpetic neuralgia, which is a severe pain that you develop from a shingles infection. We all know about it, excruciating pain. And this is usually a chronic, persistent pain. It never goes away. Now, if I tell you that I have currently a middle-aged lady who has had 14 treatments since November and is now pain-free.
And it's all due to the laser.
All due to the laser.
So that was a neurologist explaining in Africa what he's been using the therapy for and getting results. This is way before our current state of affairs. And now that we are learning that, and we have done the trials and we're seeing the results, it's just, from a medical perspective, it just makes sense to you, correct? Because you're a surgeon, you understand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. From a medical point of view, it all makes sense. And then understanding the light therapy or the laser therapy is And this kind of falls along the lines, I'm not a specialist in that particular field, but the technology that I specialized in as a flight surgeon and special operations guy was a lot to do with biowarfare, but also weapons of mass destruction. We're talking about directed energy weapons and things like that. That technology, waveform technology, is pretty easy to translate over to this, and I know that it works without a shadow of doubt. Plus, reading the articles, you gave me a stack of about 3,000 of them. I've only made it through 3, but I'll get through the rest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I told my audience members from the very beginning, I will not lie to them. I will tell them the truth. I will tell them something that works, but I won't do it until I know it works on myself and I've seen it in others. Mm-hmm. And, there's been weeks where I've been treating nothing but doctors. and so to know that makes me feel good that we are getting to a level where we get the doctors in on this, we get the protocols established, and these centers going. I think a lot of the fear factor from people, if they know that this is treatable and that we can beat this thing, it'll take the powers to be, it'll take away their power because they can't bamboozle and continue to lie. Now, listen, this is serious as a heart attack, literally died suddenly. This is as serious as a stroke, but there are ways to managing and preventing a majority of this if you know the protocols to follow. And that's what we're going to try to do in our next few series. And I guess we're going to be doing a few other podcasts and other shows. And whoever wants to hear me, hear you together, whatever, it's all about coming to solutions to problems. And the beautiful part of it is, if you're a Christian, if you're a person of faith, let there be light. It's in the Bible. Let there be light. What's the end of that sentence of let there be light?
And there was. Yeah, and then there was.
So that's the beautiful thing of it. You, myself, Dr. Braun, everybody who's a part of this are people of faith. And the good thing is I'm hearing a lot of the younger generation are starting to turn to Christianity because they see the evil that's running and they're done. They want a life of peace. They want that light. They want to be a good person.
You have a choice. You got light or darkness, right? I mean, I'd rather be in light, and I don't want to be separated from God for eternity in darkness. And there's some other things here too that are really important. Is whether you're a believer or not, just humanity itself, that we are worth it. God loves us, so we're worth it alone because as the creator of the universe loves us. But one of the things that I saw as a young soldier and then operator and then doctor is what's the truest virtue of a warrior. And it all goes down to love. It goes back to love and love for humanity, love for each other on the battlefield. We don't fight in combat because we hate who's in front of us. We love who's behind us, would be our families, and we love who's next to us in the battlefield. So it's the same thing here. This is a 5th generation warfare. It's bringing together a different team. Still warfare.
So this year, let's 2023 start better than the last two. Let the people who are looking, if you're hearing our voices, there's a reason for it. And continue to follow us because what's going to happen in the next few months, I think you're going to start seeing and hearing. I can bring people on that I've treated. I can bring doctors on that will talk about this that I've treated and can testify to what we're able to do right now. So pray for us that we get these going quicker than later because we're here to help you guys. We're trying to be the cavalry or the untouchables to get out there and go against the evil empire. Like when I started the podcast, I would call them the evil empire. And people thought I was joking. I'm like, no, I'm not joking. They are as evil as it can be. This is in September 2020, pre-Hot Shots coming out and all this bad stuff. Now, are all pharmaceutical companies bad? No, because there's a lot of medications that have saved a lot of lives. You pushed a lot. There are diabetics out there. There are things that people are going to need a lot of medications to help them through this, but some of them can be done naturally with nutraceuticals. So I'm not anti-drug from pharmaceutical companies. I'm anti who in the hell is putting these mRNAs out right now that are doing this damage because it is pure evil. And thank you again for listen. We're going to do this short. Thank you for coming on. We're going to do this again this week, and maybe you'll see us on a few other podcasts. But I truly, I hope people start reaching out that want us to maybe come, doctors, groups, talk, maybe do a little tour, maybe hit 8 or 10 cities, show off the tech, the protocols, the soldiers that want to work out and help with us. That's the goal. Thank you very much, Doc, for tuning in and talking to my follower, my friends, the audience, all of our LEMC groups out there, my Punisher friends, all those frontline workers. You are needed more than ever. So if you are mRNA injured, because a lot of them are silent suffering, we have pilots, I have captains. You've got one that we're connected to directly that'll tell you a third of the pilots are out because they were injured. A third of these pilots are suffering. And so if it's pilots and if it's airline attendants, it's definitely your soldiers on the battlefield. There are a lot of our frontline brothers and sisters that need this help. Please share. Please reach out. We'll be more than glad to speak, help, and do anything we can to be a part of the solution in 2023. Anything else, Doc, before we get off?
No, just Dan, keep getting the message out. You're Dan the messenger, so we expect that of you. Keep going. You're doing good.
Well, I argue and fight all the way through this. I'm still a first level Christian. I'm still trying to be obedient, staying focused on our mission, and staying focused on pulling our brothers and sisters like our old friend, Private Dawson. His saying was just one more. Lord, please, just give me one more. Because eventually, we all got two hands, right? Two arms. And if we pull one of them off the ground, like in football or a field, soldiers got 80 pounds of ruck on, your brothers go over there and you pick them up, right? And so if we can pick somebody up, get them functioning again, and then they can use those two arms and pick two more people up, we can reverse this and become our own virus. We can be the virus of hope, the virus of getting humanity back on its feet and out of this insane times that we're living in. Because I say we got 99 problems, COVID is one. I think right now we got 9,999 problems. COVID is still one because they've kept it that way to keep all the other ones going down. So if we put this fire out and get some critical thinkers on the battlefield to go, we've had enough of this. We want to get past this through faith, through Christ, and through these protocols, and through heroes like yourself. I'll keep talking. Forrest Gump will keep doing what he's got to do, but I say you guys are the ones that are heroes. So thank you. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Share, like, comment, and most importantly, have a blessed and a beautiful New Year's Day, and we'll see you on the other